Discover the incredible plan God has for you. An amazing journey of unexpected hope revealed. Sarah stood in the dim light of her cluttered living room, textbooks and notes scattered around her like fallen autumn leaves. The crisp morning air slithered through the single window, and despite the promises of change it brought, she felt an unshakable weight on her shoulders. For years, she had poured herself into nursing, each shift at the clinic a reminder of her family's sacrifices and the dreams she buried deeper with each passing day. She longed for a career in medical research, a flicker of ambition dimmed by the persistence of duty and financial strain. The time spent with her ailing mother felt noble, yet as days bled into nights, shadows of regret thickened, whispering a relentless reminder of her unfulfilled potential. When she entered the clinic, fatigue draping over her like a heavy blanket, Sarah felt the stares of her younger colleagues. Their whispered doubts about her commitment gnawed at her. Was it truly devotion or dereliction that kept her from pursuing her aspirations? She hesitated each time she reached for her textbooks, wondering if worthy pursuits were meant for those without burdens. Guilt ebbed at her resolve, and her heart ached with the thought of leaving her mother even for a moment. It was on one of those weary days that fate intervened. She crossed paths with Dr. Thomas at the coffee stand, that retired physician who seemed to embody the essence of compassion. As they spoke, Sarah felt an ember ignite within her latent talent for scientific inquiry snap to life. Dr. Thomas's words reverberated in her mind, urging her to believe in herself. She felt a mixture of hope and anxiety flooding her veins. Could she dare to enroll in a university program? What if it meant taking time away from home? Would her mother understand? Before she could lose her nerve, Sarah set aside her apprehensions. She enrolled and dove into late-night classes. The sweat of determination drenched her brows as she wrestled with economic inequality crushing her spirit. Bills piled high and sleepless nights consumed her focus. Yet no promotion could grant her the vitality of youth. Each day felt like a war within. Should she stay loyal to her mother or seize the passion that sparkled faintly after years of darkness? The stakes escalated with her unexpected promotion at work. Would she cling to the safety of her current life or leap into the unknown? If she followed her dreams, who would care for her mother? A whirlwind of emotions encased her mind, leaving her breathless with the weight of the choice before her. Duty or ambition? The pressures intensified like a storm rumbling beyond the horizon. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Amid public presentations at a medical conference, her nerves tangled with anticipation. Each word that left her mouth carried the weight of her family's honor, a haunting scandal from Maplewood's past, entangled with her mother's memory. The struggle to unearth the truth ignited a fire within her that she never knew existed. The fear of judgment surged, and she steadied herself against waves of doubt crashing over her conviction. Confronting societal prejudices and her own biases became increasingly personal. Every confrontation with community members echoed louder, drawing her into a labyrinth of conflict where dreams and dignity battled in silence. Could she fight against the tide of a community molded by fear? The truth loomed before her like the storm clouds gathering at dusk. Would she become the champion of her family's honor, risking everything to unveil her mother's legacy? Torn between anguish and determination, Sarah found herself suspended in precarious uncertainty, her heart racing as anxiety and resolve coalesced into one staggering decision. The heavy air of the conference hall felt thick around her, and she was left to question everything she once believed as shadows of doubt fluttered in the corners of her mind. The atmosphere inside the conference hall seemed alive, each hum of conversation echoing a mix of eagerness and skepticism. Sarah stood at the podium, a solitary island surrounded by the tides of expectation crashing against her resolve. Dr. Thomas's encouragement flickered in her mind, bolstering her flagging confidence even as uncertainty clouded her thoughts. This was her moment, yet the stakes felt impossibly high. Would she truly have the courage to stand before this room filled with colleagues, experts, and community members, and reveal the truth about her mother? As she cleared her throat, her fingers grazed the edges of her presentation notes. Lines of meticulously prepared observations and research findings felt both like a security blanket and an anchor dragging her down. The very air felt oppressive, infused with the weight of her family's legacy and the ghosts of past choices that had shaped it. Was it right to expose the scandals of old, to untangle the murky truth from the fabric of her mother's life? How could she differentiate between the desire for justice and the thirst for personal resolve? With every passing heartbeat, the internal struggle intensified. She could hear whispers of doubt threading through her mind. What if they laughed? What if they dismissed her completely? Yet, she knew that the fight to reclaim her family's honor began with her own courage. That evening, beneath the harsh fluorescent lights, she simply had to find her voice. Pausing for a breath, she glanced across the sea of faces. A wave of trepidation rolled over her, erasing her initial warmth. But just as she began to falter, she caught sight of Dr. Thomas, his steady gaze holding hers with quiet assurance. In that fleeting moment, she understood. Her fight was not merely for her family's narrative, but for herself and the dreams that lay dormant within. "Good evening," she said, her voice steadying as adrenaline surged anew. "Today, I want to reveal truths not just about my mother, but about our community, bound by both love and lingering shadows of fear." As she spoke, warmth replaced the chill creeping up her spine. Each revelation she shared peeled back layers of secrets, illuminating the struggles and resilience of her mother's life. The truth felt liberating, each word pulling her further away from doubt and closer toward the ambition that guided her previously. What once seemed daunting transformed into a tapestry of shared experiences and restoration. Sarah was not just reclaiming her mother's legacy. She was forging a path toward her destiny. The ebb and flow of her narrative captivated the audience, drawing them into the emotional fabric of her family's history. Their faces shifted, interest peaking as she spoke of sacrifice, of love that bore through hardship. She felt a surge of empowerment. With each acknowledgement she received, the burden lightened just a little. Yes, she still had a mother to care for, and yes, the path ahead remained fraught with challenges. But at that moment, she was forging a new realm of possibility as she finished. Applause erupted, an unexpected wave of validation washing over her. The connection she forged with the audience felt intoxicating. But as the applause faded, the weight of future decisions descended. Was this just the beginning of a journey toward her dreams, or merely a fleeting moment of courage? The conflicting responsibilities to her mother loomed on the horizon, casting shadows over her ambitions. Sarah found herself contemplating deeper questions. If her family's name could be cleared, would she pursue the field of medical research she yearned for? How could she integrate the newfound strength and hope into her daily life without sacrificing her duty? As the applause subsided, she stood at the very edge of an awakening, poised between two worlds: what she had been and who she could ultimately become. The burning questions ignited her drive even more. It was time for the next step. And so she left the stage with a resolve forged in fire, ready to confront not just her mother's legacy, but the reality of her own future as she pondered what kind of life she was about to carve out for herself. The moment of truth for Sarah loomed ahead, and now it was time to face the most formidable opponent yet, herself. Would she embrace her new path, or would fear pull her back into the shadows? Sarah stepped off the podium, an electrifying mix of exhilaration and anxiety coursing through her veins. The applause still resonated in her ears, yet the echo of her mother's circumstances crept back into her mind. The room that seemed momentarily like a haven now transformed into a paradox, pulsating with excitement on one hand and laced with the burdens of her past on the other. Her heart raced not from the exhilaration of success, but from the weight of the choices lying ahead. She had taken a stride toward freedom, yet uncertainty threatened to pull her back into the familiar clutches of doubt. What did courage mean now, after unveiling her family's secrets? Did it mean pursuing her dreams unfettered, or carrying the weight of guilt over her mother, whose sins crystallized in her consciousness. Dr. Thomas approached, his presence a steady anchor amidst the turmoil swirling within her. "You did well," he said, a sincere smile brightening his worn features. "Your story matters, Sarah. Can change lives, not just your own." As his words settled, a flicker of realization ignited within her. It was more than her mother's redemption. It was her quest to reclaim a narrative clouded by shadows. Unearthing the truth shone a light not only on her mother's struggles but also on her own long-buried aspirations. But with this revelation came another flickering shadow, the knowledge that the path to reconciliation with her mother was lined with treacherous terrain. Could she find a balance? The world of medical research beckoned with its promise of discovery and impact, yet her mother remained ensnared in her own battles. The question was a torment: how could she chase her aspirations without abandoning her responsibilities? The answer felt elusive, and as Sarah moved through the hall, she found herself grappling with an uncomfortable truth. Personal growth often required painful decisions. Determined to forge ahead, she reached for the phone in her pocket. She needed to talk to her mother, to confront not just the past, but also her future. With each ring, her heart raced, a rhythm echoing her mounting anxiety. What would she say? Would her mother, still mired in denial, even want to engage? Finally, the call connected. "Mom, it's me." Sarah's voice trembled, vibrating with an intensity she hadn't expected. "Sarah?" Her mother's voice barely held its usual guarded tone. "You're all right?" She inhaled deeply. "I am. I spoke today. About you. About us. Why would you do that?" Her mother's voice tightened, stark with alarm. "Because we can't keep hiding anymore. Your story, it's part of my story. And it's time we face it together." Heavy silence hung between them, a chasm filled with years of avoidance and unspoken fears. Sarah pressed on. "I want to pursue medical research to help people like you. But I can only do that if we confront the truth. For once, can't we just forget?" Her mother's plea cracked, revealing a vulnerability Sarah had never witnessed. "No, we can't keep ignoring what's broken. Together, we have to find a way to heal, for both our sakes." The conviction in Sarah's voice surprised her. It was as if the words themselves bore the weight of her decision, laying the first stepping stone toward change. The conversation spiraled into a probing dialogue filled with doubt and desperation, yet it illuminated the very fractures that bound them. With each shared truth, Sarah felt another fragment of herself reform, crystallizing into a stronger conviction. Still, the discussion weighed heavily. She had bravely confronted her mother, yet looming questions continued to spiral within her. What if unraveling the past fed her mother's pain rather than mending their bond? What if her professional dreams drifted further away with each attempt to reach her mother? As Sarah hung up the phone, resoluteness and trepidation mingled tightly within her. Her path was obscured, yet the light of hope flickered restlessly ahead, demanding action. The internal battle unfurled once more. Would she embrace her dreams while facing familial upheaval, or would she retreat, bound by love and fear? She took a moment before setting her sights firmly on the future. The journey demanded she step boldly into her own life. Yet, just as she grasped the reins of excitement and fear in tandem, a new question unfurled. What if confronting her mother led to a confrontation with forces far more sinister than she had anticipated? And with that, Sarah's gaze shifted from the hallway of the conference center to the future that awaited her, an unknown promise laced with uncertainty, yet begging her to take the next step. The time had come to face not just her mother's legacy, but the shadow lurking behind her own ambition. Would she rise to the challenge or allow doubt to extinguish her newfound flame? The sun dipped below the horizon, casting long shadows as Sarah sat in her small apartment, surrounded by hastily stacked books on medical journals and open notebooks filled with scribbles of her thoughts. Each word on the pages felt like a plea to decipher what her future could hold. Yet her focus continuously drifted back to the conversation with her mother. It rattled her, echoing in her mind and mingling with her burgeoning aspirations in medical research. While the realm of science felt intoxicating, a significant part of her remained tethered to her mother's unresolved pain. Could she genuinely aspire to care for others when her own family seemed fractured? The dilemma gnawed at her. Pursuing an external healing meant she had to address internal wounds. But how could she embrace her ambitions when every step forward felt like a betrayal? With a decisive gesture, she pushed her notes aside, bringing her laptop closer. She needed to collaborate with other passionate individuals in her field, to anchor herself in a network that recognized her vision. But the idea of reaching out felt both exhilarating and daunting. Her fingers lingered over the keyboard, hesitant to introduce herself to scholars whose contributions loomed colossal in the medical community, and no longer could she play small. The moment for growth demanded she expose herself to the world, even if it meant confronting her fears head-on. With a deep breath, she crafted an email. "Dear Dr. Henderson," it began, her heart fluttering as she constructed sentences that conveyed both respect and aspiration. As she typed, redirection came. She was not merely seeking collaboration but forging her path, a bridge built on her knowledge and passion. Pressing send, she felt a simultaneous spark of relief and vulnerability. Days passed, and the anticipation morphed into something tangible, an invitation to join a project aimed at researching treatments for her mother's condition. The enormity of the opportunity gripped her, and her nervousness elevated to euphoria. Yet, as she had anticipated, it brought forth another wave of intertwined emotions. She needed to involve her mother in this journey, to invite her to witness the possibility of hope just as Sarah had awoken to it. "Mom," she said, her voice steady as they sat at the kitchen table one Sunday afternoon, contrasting the familiar domesticity with the weight of their conversation. "I want to involve you in something that could have big implications for people like you. I've been invited to join a research project." The air thickened with unsaid feelings, but Sarah pressed onward. "I know it's difficult right now, but we can fight this together." Her mother's face revealed a mixture of skepticism and fear. "You think your little project will change anything? You're just getting started. There's always a risk." "Yes, there's risk," Sarah admitted, her voice rising above the doubt. "But there's also hope. You're my motivation. If I can help even one person, it would mean everything. Isn't that worth facing the past together?" Silence enveloped the kitchen. The echo of Sarah's plea ricocheted between old wounds and possible paths for healing. For a brief moment, both women locked eyes, and in that gaze hovered a flicker of understanding. Perhaps they were both right. Perhaps they could re-establish their identities amid the rubble of their history. That night, as she lay in bed, Sarah wrestled with the desire to push for a breakthrough while grappling with her mother's possible reluctance. It wasn't just her mother's health at stake. It was also Sarah's burgeoning career. She faced an unsettling choice: to elevate her ambitions through research or to tread cautiously with the fragility of familial relationships. As her mind spiraled into the future, possibilities danced like shadows, pushing against each other within her. She needed more than a plan. She needed resilience to navigate the tumultuous waters of her family while illuminating her passion in medicine. Then came the sudden, abrupt sound of her phone vibrating on the bedside. Table and email response. It was from Dr. Henderson. Heart racing, she opened it, and a thrill rushed through her veins. But as she read the words, the sense of elation wavered, as the gravity of the request within the email dawned upon her. Dr. Henderson was asking for a commitment, no turning back. Would Sarah rise to the occasion and pursue her research with fervor, or would the weight of her family pull her back into the shadows of uncertainty? The answer lay before her, shimmering like a mirage across the horizon, beckoning her to take the leap into the unknown. As morning light seeped through the kitchen window, Sarah felt an unsettling blend of excitement and anxiety twisting within her. Today would be the day she responded to Dr. Henderson's email. It wasn't merely a matter of replying. It meant confronting her fears and stepping boldly into a role she had yearned for, but so often doubted she could handle. The certainty of her mother's lingering disappointment loomed in mind as she poured herself a cup of coffee, the steam rising like her own hopes. Sitting at the table, she opened her laptop again, the blankness of the screen urging her to make the leap. With each click of the keys, pressure built in her shoulders. She felt the constricting weight of expectation, both self-imposed and familial. Sarah paused, contemplating her next moves. She could sense the uncharted waters ahead, Her fingers hesitated over the keyboard, a silent battle raging as her thoughts spiraled into what-ifs. What if I fail? What if I can't balance this with my relationship with Mom? What if my pursuit isolates me even further? But as she took a sip from her coffee, its warmth grounded her, igniting the raw determination she'd felt for so long. She remembered the flicker of hope she had seen in her mother's eyes the previous day, however fleeting it was. That vision fueled her resolve, reminding her of why she had to press on with this project. With newfound clarity, Sarah started typing her response to Dr. Henderson. "I am honored to accept the opportunity to join your team." Each word solidified her commitment. She outlined her motivations, her eagerness to contribute, and her personal connection to the research. The act felt cathartic, almost like she was claiming her space within a world that respected her intellect and aspirations. A wave of relief washed over her as she pressed send. There was no turning back. Yet, that relief quickly echoed into a deeper realization. The project was about more than data collection or scientific advancement. It was about transforming her own narrative and, perhaps, her mother's too. They were both battling an overarching imprint of defeat, but Sarah was more than ready to elevate their story. That afternoon, equipped with determination, she called her mother. "Mom, I sent my reply to Dr. Henderson," she said, her heart racing. "I'm officially part of the team. We'll be doing significant work together." Silence hung on the line. The familiar skepticism flared up again. "Are you sure you can handle this? You're stepping into deep water, and I don't want to see you drown." Her mother's defensiveness usually stung, but Sarah pressed on, emboldened. "Mom, I feel like this is the path I need to take. Yes, there's uncertainty, but I'm ready to embrace it. I want to help, and you can be part of this. I want us to face this together." Together, her mother echoed, the word heavy with a lifetime of history. Sarah could almost hear the wheels turning in her mother's mind. "I don't expect you to believe it right away, but I need you to support me," Sarah said. "Let us explore this journey of healing, for both of us." The conversation fell into a tentative rhythm. Each word exchanged felt like breaking down walls that had constrained them for years. Their connection, once frayed, was beginning to weave anew, shaped by shared determination and vulnerability. Yet, doubt still lingered in the air, thickened by years of hesitance. In the days that followed, Sarah dove into the project with ferocity, attending meetings, absorbing literature, and outlining research plans with newfound zeal. Each interaction crystallized her aspirations further, yet the shadow of her mother's skepticism remained a constant reminder of the challenges ahead. As she developed a deeper understanding of the work and the potential impact it could have on her mother's condition, she realized she had to turn her newfound professional growth into personal courage. One evening, as she prepared to present her initial findings to the team, Sarah felt an exhilarating mix of nerves and excitement. The face of the medical community, dotted with experienced scholars, felt overwhelming, yet also invigorating. Her voice rang in her ears, an internal mantra pushing against the tide of uncertainty. She had to confront her fears head-on, not just for herself but for her mother. The next step loomed larger and more daunting than she anticipated. How would she connect her growing expertise in research with the deeply personal journey of healing her mother required? And just as doubt threatened to seize her once again, she received another message, a request from a prominent figure in the project, asking her for a one-on-one consultation. The implications flashed through her mind. This was not just a chance to shine in her field, but a potential roadmap into connecting her ambitions with care for her mother. The moment felt poised on the edge of monumental change. Yet lingering questions hung in the balance. Would she be able to rise to this challenge? Could she maintain her drive while keeping her family's emotional journey front and center? The answers danced just beyond her grasp, merging the professional and personal into a singularly daunting path. This was her chance to reshape both their lives. And as she prepared for her meeting, the thought erupted in her mind. The real growth awaited her in the synthesis of science and familial bonds. Would she seize it, or would the past pull her back once again into uncertainty? The meeting day arrived with unexpected gravity. As Sarah adjusted her blazer in the bathroom mirror, She couldn't shake the swell of anticipation and apprehension bubbling within her. This wasn't merely a presentation. It felt like a defining moment intertwined with her personal life. Would this figure in the project see her potential? Would they dismiss her as another inexperienced contributor? She inhaled deeply, attempting to quell the rising tide of anxiety. The conference room buzzed with scholars engaged in animated discussions. Each voice, a reminder of her comparative solitude in this realm, echoed the uncertainty she faced. Sarah found herself second-guessing her preparations, recalling every moment of self-doubt she had navigated in the journey leading to this point. Was she truly ready for this? As she entered the room, her heart raced. The prominent figure, Dr. Markowitz, sat at the head of the table, brimming with authority. His resume was impressive: papers published, conferences attended, networks built. But what struck Sarah wasn't just his accolades. It was the ease with which he commanded respect. "Welcome, Sarah," he said, his eyes glinting with curiosity. "I've been looking forward to our conversation." The small talk faded as Dr. Markowitz inquired about her initial findings. Each word she spoke felt like an intricate dance, combining the technical knowledge she had gleaned with the raw emotion of her personal journey. As she outlined her research approach, she allowed glimpses of her connection to her mother's struggles to seep through. This was more than a job to her. It was a mission born from love, fear, and hope. Dr. Markowitz leaned back, his expression shifting to one of intrigue. "Your insights are impressive. You managed to tie your research questions to real-world implications seamlessly. Tell me more about the personal motivation behind your work." His question unveiled a floodgate of vulnerability she hadn't anticipated. "My mother has been battling a serious illness for years," she confessed, her voice wavering slightly. "This research isn't just academic for me. It's about her life and the lives of others like her. I see potential for real change." The room fell silent as the weight of her words lingered in the air. She felt exposed, stripped of her academic armor, yet liberated in that honesty. Dr. Markowitz's scrutiny sharpened, as if he were analyzing every aspect of her being. This depth of connection laying bare her innermost fears and hopes cast aside any veneer of purely professional ambition. After a brief pause, he responded, "That's a compelling motivation, but it also brings an added layer of pressure. How do you plan to balance personal involvement in this project with your professional responsibilities? Are you comfortable navigating that potential conflict?" A knot formed in Sarah's stomach. The implications of his question struck at the heart of her journey. She envisioned her mother's struggles alongside her ambitions and the potential for failure or worse, the risk of repeating the past. Yet beneath that anxiety, clarity emerged. "I realize the stakes are high, but I've found strength in this duality. My personal experience informs my professional approach, making me not just a researcher but a compassionate advocate. I am determined to forge a path that honors both." She saw the flicker of approval in Dr. Markowitz's eyes. Encouraged, she pressed on. "I intend to approach this work with transparency, integrating the lessons I learned from my mother's journey. That perspective could be invaluable both to our findings and to how we present them." As their conversation deepened, a sense of kinship began to form. They exchanged ideas, challenges, and solutions, a constructive dialogue wrapping around her growing confidence. When the meeting concluded, Sarah emerged not just with contact information but a hint of validation and affirmation that her unique blend of personal passion and professional ambition could coexist. Yet in the back of her mind, doubt pulsed like a distant thunder, reminding her of everything still at stake. Back at her desk, as she updated her notes, an unexpected message from her mother appeared on her phone. "How did the meeting go?" it read. The question carried weight. Sarah hesitated before typing back, choosing her words intentionally. "It went well. I feel good about the direction it's heading. I wish you could been there to see it." Her mother's response was swift. "Good. Just remember not to lose yourself in it." Those words stirred a tempest of mixed emotions. They felt both supportive and ominous. Could she remain steady amidst this torrent of professional ambition and personal turmoil? With each passing moment, Sarah realized the stakes were higher than she initially anticipated. The path ahead was filled with soaring aspirations but also fraught with the potential for heartbreak. Would she navigate this duality successfully, or would her unresolved fears pull her back when it mattered most? As she prepared for the next steps, a greater question loomed. How would she maintain her commitment to both her research and her mother's well-being? The answer remained tantalizingly elusive, yet pressing against her mind an imminent resolution awaited, and it was her duty to confront it head-on. The following days swept into Sarah's life with a predictable frenzy, a whirlwind of emails, meetings, and preparations that left her mind racing. Each morning, she would awaken with a pulse of anticipation. Was that call from Dr. Markowitz finally coming? The weight of her ambitions pressed upon her like a steady drumbeat, urging her to forge ahead, yet instilling a fear that lingered just beneath the surface that in her quiet moments. However, the clarity from her last meeting lingered. It was that exchange of ideas with Dr. Markowitz, the acknowledgement of her dual commitment to research and her mother's well-being, that ignited a fire within her. She felt a responsibility, not merely to herself or her career, but to infuse her work with genuine intent and compassion. Determined to carve a niche for herself, Sarah redirected her energy into her research. Late nights transformed into creative brainstorming sessions where she wove together empirical data with the very personal stories of those affected by her mother's illness. She began to reach out to others, gathering testimonials, seeking out individuals whose lives had been shaped by the same struggles. Each story carved deeper connections into her work, all grounded in a sincerity that uplifted her spirit. Yet, with the excitement of evolving her project, a different kind of anxiety began to creep in. As new narratives emerged, Sarah realized she was paring back her own experiences, treading carefully around her mother's story, careful not to expose the raw edges of her emotions. Would her mother understand the necessity behind the disclosures? Or would it feel like another betrayal? Amidst this turmoil, an email arrived that sent her heart racing. It was Dr. Markowitz, inviting her to partner on an upcoming presentation at a major conference. The request was both exhilarating and terrifying. This was an opportunity for her ideas to reach a broader audience, but it also meant presenting under a spotlight one she feared she might not yet be ready to stand beneath. "I believe this could be a game-changer for your project," he wrote. "But remember, it's vital to maintain the essence of what drives you. Don't lose sight of the personal journey intertwined with your academic pursuit." Those words cut straight through her swirling doubts. In that moment, a revelation struck her. She had been so focused on presenting her work as polished and detached that she had begun to mask the very elements that made it truly impactful. How could she expect others to connect with her research if it wasn't true to her story? The tension wrestled within her, and she was faced with a decision point. Should she embrace the rawness of her experiences and allow them to shape her academic journey? Or should she continue to shield them, fearing judgment from colleagues and authority figures? Her hesitation turned into an inner confrontation, the dichotomy of vulnerability versus professionalism taking center stage. Drawing in a breath, Sarah set to work. The quiet of her apartment became a sanctuary for her thoughts as she crafted her presentation, weaving in the threads of her mother's narrative alongside the hard data. She included her motivations, her fears, laid bare for others to see. This was not just research. It was a reflection of her life, a tapestry woven with both pain and hope. As she rehearsed her presentation, she felt an exhilarating sense of liberation. This was her truth, shared in a way that honored both her experiences and the experiences of others. She sensed it in her thoughts, a whisper of victory amidst the clang of self-doubt. If there was one thing she was learning, it was that authenticity, however shaky, had its own strength. Yet, even as Sarah embraced this new pathway, a part of her couldn't ignore the undercurrent of dread. Would Dr. Markowitz and the audience accept this approach? Could she truly navigate the tightrope of vulnerability and professionalism? As the day of the conference approached, an urgent realization dawned on her. This was more than a professional milestone. It was also an opportunity for personal growth, one that could either alienate or unite her with her mother's spirit. The time had come to face her fears head-on, much larger and more complex than she had initially recognized. Would she step into the arena fully, heart in hand, or retreat to a safer, polished version of herself? With the echo of her mother's warning resonating in her mind, Sarah realized the moment of truth was at hand. How would she choose to define her journey moving forward? Would this still be about just the research, or was it time to embrace the fullness of her experience as the foundation of her story? The days slipped by rapidly, each marked by the persistent tick of the clock reminding Sarah of the impending conference. In every corner of her mind, doubt intertwined with excitement, creating a tangled web she couldn't escape. Each time she thought of Dr. Markowitz's words, she felt that familiar pulse of anticipation mixed with anxiety. Would they accept her voice? Would it resonate? As she sat at her desk, surrounded by papers fluttering like restless birds, the pressure mounted. She couldn't shake the feeling that this was the moment she had been preparing for. Yet the ghosts of her hesitation clung to her. To peel back the layers of her carefully constructed facade felt perilous, like stepping into a void where no safety net existed. The deeper she delved into her preparation, the more she discovered about herself. Sarah began shifting through her research, her notes rich with figures and findings, but yearning to transform them into something more. The stories she had gathered danced in her thoughts, each one a testament of struggle, resilience, and love. They echoed her own story, a reminder of the urge she felt to be seen and heard, not just as a researcher but as a woman grappling with her own heartache. While revising her slides, she scribbled prompts for herself in the margins. What does this mean for you? And how can this help others feel understood? These questions propelled her toward a clearer vision. She started to realize that being vulnerable wouldn't weaken her position. Rather, it would enrich the narrative and give others the courage to share their own experiences. Perhaps it was time for her to accept the truth of her emotions, to dauntlessly embrace her journey and infuse her work with that rawness. Yet, amidst this progress, Sarah's envisioned presentation began each day with nagging questions. Every time the clock struck the hour for her to practice, a moment of hesitation would brush against her heart. What if she stepped on stage and faltered? What if she choked on her words, unable to convey the stories woven into her research? The tight grasp of anxiety refused to loosen, somber in its persistence. Despite the turmoil, she was relentless in her practice. The warm glow from her desk lamp illuminated her face, giving her the appearance of someone searching for clarity amongst chaos. She rehearsed her presentation in front of a mirror, watching her reflection as she spoke not just of statistics, but of hope, loss, and the fight for understanding that her mother had fought. With every iteration, something began to shift in her demeanor, a quiet yet undeniable confidence seeped into her words. She was transforming her fear into fuel, a momentum that seemed to arise out of nowhere. The night before the conference, Sarah lay in bed, her thoughts a whirlwind. Images of her mother flashed through her mind. The warmth of her embrace, the worry lines etched on her forehead, the resilience in her voice that had always propelled Sarah forward. Would she stand in honor of that strength? Could she bring the essence of her mother's fight to the forefront, making it the heartbeat of her presentation? The morning sun broke through her window the next day, and the brightness cast a hopeful hue across her room. She felt different, a shift in her mindset that whispered encouragement. This was her story, and it deserved to be told. As Sarah prepared for the conference, her mind began to race through the potential outcomes. She was ready to embrace whatever response awaited her. The culmination of her months of work and introspection had forged a new version of herself, one that understood the complexity of her vulnerabilities. She was stepping into a battleground, but with each step, she felt more and more like a warrior. With the conference approaching, an urge bubbled within her. This was not only about professional acceptance. It was a chance to cultivate her personal identity and be proud of it. The clock ticked on, and with it a surge of determination rose inside her. She had the power to reshape not just her future, but that of everyone who had ever felt the weight of miscommunication and judgment. That thought lingered in her mind, a promise made to herself. She would embrace both her truth and the raw edges of her experience. It was time to break through the final barrier of doubt and share her voice with the world. But as she stood at the threshold of her destiny, something unexpected lurked in the shadows, a challenge that could threaten to uproot everything she had just built. Would she be strong enough to face it head-on when it emerged, or would it shake her newfound resolve? As the day of the conference dawned, Sarah felt a fray of emotions swirling inside her. The bright morning sun, once a symbol of optimism, now cast a harsh light on her growing apprehensions. She had rehearsed her presentation countless times, yet the specter of doubt lingered, whispering misguided fears into her mind. Did she truly have the strength to evoke the empathy she sought? With shaky hands, she packed her bag, ensuring she had everything she needed: her slides, note cards, and a small memento of her mother, a locket that dangled warmly against her heart. Holding it tightly, she took a deep breath, grounding herself in the present moment. She was not just a researcher. She was a vessel of meaningful stories as she navigated the hustle and bustle of the venue. The air buzzed with excitement, laughter, and an undercurrent of anxiety. Each step felt heavier, laden with the weight of expectation. As attendees filed into the auditorium, mingling, Sarah sensed the tides of comparison rising within her. Were they morning stars, effortlessly brilliant? Or were they like her, shrouded in their unique insecurities? The session before hers was wrapping up, and she watched as another speaker commanded the stage. The presenter spoke eloquently, moves fluid and confident, evoking rounds of applause. Sarah clenched her hands tighter around the locket, a reminder that presentations weren't merely about performance. They were about connection. The stories that lay beneath the figures, nestled in the research, mattered more than applause. Just as the speaker ended, a nervous energy coursed through her. What if the room wouldn't resonate with her tale? What if they dismissed her struggles as inconsequential? Then, as if the universe wanted to shake her resolve further, the lights flickered unexpectedly. Panic rippled through the audience, and she saw fear mirrored in their faces, a stirring reminder that vulnerability was inherently part of the human experience. When the time finally came, Sarah approached the podium. Her heart raced. Every heartbeat echoed in her ears. The bright lights washed over her as she surveyed the room. Anxiety gripped her throat, relentless, clawing at her composure. She inhaled deeply, centering herself with the memory of her mother's voice. This was her moment to rise, with the slides behind her. She began to speak, a rhythmic flow of thoughts and emotions cascading from her lips. Instantly, she saw faces soften, brows unwrinkle, and eyes widen in shared understanding. Each story she shared wove a tapestry that connected her struggles with their fragility met resilience, and honesty transcended perfection. It wasn't the polished performance she had rehearsed that mattered. It was the raw truth that seeped through her words. Yet, as she reached a pivotal moment of sharing her own heartbreak, a jarring commotion erupted at the back of the room. A small technical failure seemed trivial, yet it broke the intimate connection she had established. Voices carried confusion, and whispers swirled like a gust of wind tearing through her momentum. For a second, time froze, her heart skipped, and she felt the fragility of her newfound confidence teetering on the edge. With a deep sense of urgency, she found herself at a crossroads. Should she stumble in her delivery, grappling to regain control? Or would she shatter the barriers of distraction by embracing the chaos, weaving it into her narrative and demonstrating the power of resilience? In that electrifying moment, her past, her fears, her mother's unwavering spirit converged into a singularly profound lesson. Sarah understood. Perhaps the true essence of her presentation lay not in perfection but in authenticity. With a newfound determination surging through her, she decided. As she steadied her voice and refocused her gaze on the audience, she was ready to challenge the impending disruption and solidify the message she had intended to communicate. The crowd held their breath, awaiting her next words, and she knew only one thing. Her journey was far from over. But the struggle to redefine what success meant loomed ahead, a question weaving its way into the delicate fabric of her resolve. Could she maintain this authenticity in the face of doubt and redefine her perception of vulnerability? The chaos died down as Sarah anchored herself, fixing her gaze on the audience. No longer mired in fear, she harnessed the event's unpredictability as a rallying point. Life is not always perfect, she continued, her voice resonating with newfound strength. It's in our imperfections that we find shared humanity. The room quieted further, attention fully drawn to her. As she moved through her research findings and personal experiences, Sarah blended statistical insights with poignant anecdotes, stitching the two together seamlessly. The audience slowly transformed from mere observers to partners in her journey. They shared in both the trials and triumphs of caring for a loved one and the aspiration to drive change through science. When it came time to conclude, Sarah felt a surge of resolve. Today may not just be about numbers, she said, an earnest plea threading through her words. It's about connection, about hope. The applause that followed wasn't merely polite, it was a thunderous acknowledgement of her courage and authenticity. It felt like a celebration, not just of her work, but of her growth as a woman, a daughter, and a committed scholar. Standing there, with the warmth of recognition washing over her, Sarah relished that moment. It was a concrete transformation, woven from the threads of vulnerability that had initially shrouded her. The conference culminated in discussions that rippled outward. Colleagues approached her afterward, eager to share their own connections to her story. Sarah's research was no longer just an individual pursuit. It became a collective effort. As her confidence swelled, she embraced those moments with her heart wide open. For the first time in a long while, she felt like she belonged in this world that had seemed both distant and intimidating. Later, as she exited the venue, her phone buzzed with texts from her mother, each one carrying encouragement and pride. "I wish I could have seen you up there. Keep fighting, Sarah." They made plans for lunch, and the wistfulness that once tainted her aspirations transformed into determination. Over their meal, she would invite her mother not just into the conversation about recovery, but into the experience of healing together. Sarah had come to understand that her personal journey was an integral part of her professional success. She was no longer simply navigating the duality of ambition and familial duty. She was now reshaping the narrative of both, allowing them to flourish side by side. Challenging her mother's past became a form of rebuilding, not just of their relationship but of their identities. Sarah no longer feared discussing the shadows of her mother's life. Instead, she recognized it as a stepping stone towards growth. Months later, her research garnered attention nationally, evolving into a collaborative initiative that revolved around community support for families facing similar struggles. In that journey, Sarah found her voice not just as a researcher, but as a compassionate advocate deeply entwined with her mother's legacy as she stood at the podium once more. This time to present at an even larger conference, she looked out at a sea of faces, ready to hear what she had to share. She spoke with unyielding passion, fueled by her journey, and more than personal accolades, she aimed to impact the lives of many in the whirlwind of her transformation. Sarah discovered that courage is not devoid of fear, but rather the nuanced blend of ambition and authenticity that propels individuals forward, and she was finally ready to claim both. Embrace your journey. At this time, you need to subscribe now to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. This is the moment to show your support. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. It truly makes a difference. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Your thoughts are vital to us. And don't wait even one more second to share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this impactful conclusion. Together, we can inspire those on paths of personal overcoming.